On today's episode of the Story Detective, it's time for one of those videos on tips for Camp Nanowrimo. Since we have the next camp coming rapidly upon us in July, and the world has been a topsy-turvy plate of shit spaghetti, this will not be the typical NaNoWriMo tips video. Drastic times call for drastic measures. Actually, that's not always true. Sometimes you just need a better strategy. That's what's coming up. Stick around. During April's Camp Nano, words were about as scarce as eggs in toilet paper around here. Writers do not work well in hostile environments. At least I don't. I'm hoping to get back on track with my writing schedule in July. And if you're watching this, you probably do as well. Writers are an emotionally sensitive lot and very in tune with all the humanity issues going on around us. That's a large part of why we write, to refocus those issues and to share them on a symbolic level with others. Writers are often products of their environments and the time in which we live and create. This is certainly a difficult time, but it's also a meaningful one. We have observed those who have taken an oath to uphold our rights and safety treat a pandemic as if it doesn't exist. We have witnessed those who have sworn to protect us murder defenseless human beings because of their skin tone, and we have heard the cries for change. Humanity has had opportunities to change the world before, and instead of evolution, we settled for something less, a status quo, where what was considered the majority could turn a blind eye and sleep safely in their bed beneath a blanket of privilege. July is the month in which we celebrate our independence in these United States of America. But are we independent? Does equality exist for one and all? Hopefully the meaning of this time we are now living will not become another opportunity lost to time and future generations to look back on and weep for in the wake of further atrocities. The fight is long from over, but change has begun in the here and now, and it's up to each of us to do our part to keep it going and growing. If nothing else gives you encouragement to write your future stories, what will? Because our stories can be a vital part of that change. Stories affect lives. Heroes inspire. Writers capture all of those thoughts and emotion, one word at a time. And those words have power. The power to inspire greater thought. And thought is freedom. If that was not so, books wouldn't be burned and writers shot first every time freedom was suppressed. You have been handed a noble tradition to be the scribes of tomorrow's free thinkers and hope. Does it matter if you're writing the next great literary novel or a horror story or science fiction? How many horror stories have inspired us to face down our own monsters? How many science fiction stories have inspired inventions that have made communication easier? The tablet I wrote this on, the video equipment I'm filming and editing on, which is beaming it to your devices in your homes. It's all part of the greater whole. Follow your hearts, because what's in your heart will be captured and passed on as you pluck those thoughts and words from the ether and capture a sliver of the time in which you are writing, passing it onward and forward to a future we are helping to create, because that's what stories do. You only have to look at your own lives to know this is true. Let's take a breath, because I have some tips that I want to share for cleaning out the cobwebs for Camp Nano. They're probably a little less conventional than most of what you're hearing, but would you still be here otherwise? The human brain has 100 trillion connections. It produces hundreds of chemicals that feed and control everything we do and feel. And for all of its untapped complexity, it can easily become preoccupied with a handful of things, or just one thing, depending on the emotional intensity of the issue with which it's presented. Humans do not multitask well. You'll notice I didn't say it can't be done, though a lot of us can't do it. However, even most who can cannot escape the brain's diminishing ability of one task being 100% of our focus, 2 consumes 50%, and 3 falls in at around 33%. This can certainly vary between smaller tasks, which require less overall focus. The point being, the more things the human brain has to deal with, the more focus diminishes. Moreover, if you give the average brain several tasks to finish in a day, there will likely be one that draws your attention more than the others, pulling a greater amount of time and attention than the rest. Tasks which take us beyond our usual routine takes time in order to establish them into our routine. This is why NaNoWriMo can be a hit or miss equation. The problem writers face is our stories demand we wear many hats to broaden our focus to do multiple tasks on any given page. So how does that pan out when the world at large is constantly demanding we focus our energy on more things these days than most of us can handle? The answer is not very well in most cases. Attention goes where emotions flow. Is it possible to make a conscious shift and redirect our attention from too many distractions? Yes, but it takes a bit of understanding. And even through understanding, the same techniques for shifting that works one day and might not work the next day or for long term. Just like exercising at one level, after a little your mind gets used to it. Let's look at the reasons behind this to first develop an understanding, and then we'll talk solutions. To understand the busy mind is pretty simple, because it's the part of the brain that deals with all of those exterior circumstances which draw our attention. Another term for it is the conscious mind, which is the great interrupter. As writers, we understand very well that everything that interrupts us has its roots in the physical world which surrounds us. The subconscious is very good at reminding us the laundry needs to be done, or there's YouTube videos to watch, social media to check. All these things feed the conscious, and it's very habitual with its eating habits and problem-solving instincts. The subconscious mind is a bit different. It's that deep place where we go to find solutions to problems, or creative ideas, even inspiration. And it's a lot tougher to get to when life gets too hectic with all those physical things. It can be a bit of a catch-22 in getting out of our own way sometimes in order to find the answers that we seek, emotionally and creatively. It's also a place where dreams live and the inner dreamer within. It doesn't know possible from impossible, large tasks from small. Those moments where you feel very in tune with the creative universe and can seemingly do anything is a product of the subconscious mind feeding you. So there comes the question of, how do we find a balance between the two? Since the conscious mind is always running the exterior activities, all those things we have to deal with in our physical existence, it can be tricked by giving it something physical to do, which sounds like a total contradiction, but bear with me. This is why writers come up with so many ideas by taking a walk, washing dishes, showering, or shaving. While all these activities are great for short-term brainstorming, how do we prolong something like this throughout our day, much less the month of July? What this means is that part of the subconscious that doesn't distinguish the impossible from the possible also can't determine large chunks of writing from small. So whatever your word count goal is for July, you may want to consider lowering it. If you've been distracted lately by everything going on in the world, then you definitely need to lower it. And here's why. Creating new habits and reforming older ones because we've been out of sync for a while can take a little time. 28 days to be exact. So we can use camp to motivate ourselves to get back into the groove, so long as we don't exhaust our already taxed energy levels. Trying to power our way through an entire month will probably take more energy than most of us have right now. Solution? Make your word count ridiculously low. Try 10,000 words, for example. For 30 days, that breaks down to slightly over 333.3 words per day. Can you handle that? If not, don't be ashamed to reduce it to 8,000 or 5,000 words for the month. If you want to go a bit higher in your word count, That's perfectly acceptable as well. However, don't let your appetite to write get the better of you, because smaller chunks create bigger chunks, because that subconscious part of your brain recognizes it as a successful completion of your daily goal. Remember, large and small goals aren't as important as registering the fact that you've met them from day to day. That 10K example we talked about is pretty easy to get ahead of as well. Once you get rolling along with the story, you might find yourself accomplishing that within the first week. And if that's the case, great. But don't leap ahead and increase that goal because you've gotten ahead of yourself. Keep the daily word count the same. Keep it low and allow the good days and the bad days to be just whatever they are. You've already met your initial goal if you've hit that 10,000, but just keep moving. The important thing is to keep registering success and releasing those endorphins because you've gotten past your funk. Those little bits of success encourages us to keep going and to do more. Let's get on with some tips for keeping the conscious mind occupied and staying out of our own way, shall we? Not everyone likes to work to music, but for those who do, your playlist for the month should probably vary. If you get pumped by one CD or even one song, by all means run with it until you can run no further. On the other hand, if you listen to metal, you might try classical music, because there have been studies that show that changes in chords in both have a similar effect on people who usually write to one or the other. Try a different style, or change the usual order if you have a playlist you already listen to. What about adding white noise or ambient sound? There are tons of apps for this, and you may want to have more than one. Remember what we discussed about how using the same techniques to occupy your conscious mind every day may be less effective as time goes on. There are also CDs with sound waves that induce a creative mood subliminally when played with headphones. If you're the sort of writer who does well with background chatter in a cafe, but can't go to a public place and sit in close proximity with other people right now, you might try an audiobook playing low in the background, or a TV. If those stories pull you into listening instead of writing, try tuning into something in a language other than the one you're familiar with. That way you won't be able to pick out the words and they won't become a distraction. If you've been writing with a specific keyboard, switch it up. There are very inexpensive keyboards online or at the local Walmart or Target or whatever your local store happens to be that sells these things. Or if you feel like investing in a good one, now would be a great time to make that switch. A different set of keys will not only present you with a different tactile sensation than you're used to, it will lend a different attitude to your writing sometimes as well. You could also try writing for a day in a notebook or a legal pad and recording it later. I've done this and just dictated my notes afterwards into my word processor. It only took a few minutes to speak them, and a page and a half or 2 pages, and you'll be beyond your 333.3 words depending on the size of the notepad in no time. Dictation is always a faster alternative to getting words down. If you're writing a first draft and just need to get something down quickly, or the words really don't have to be perfect, dictation may be your key to success. If you usually write in the morning and you've been in a slump in your usual routine, change up the time of day you're writing. Try an afternoon or evening session instead. If you're currently back at work, try writing on breaks or lunches. If you write in the evening after work or when everyone else goes to bed, try using your usual hour or two of writing time to get to bed earlier, then get up an hour or two earlier and try writing before your day begins. I used to do that when I was working like 12 to 15 hour days. It took a few days to adjust, but once I saw results, I was eager to get up and get going. Changing location can be just as important. Try setting up 2 or 3 places you might write, if possible. If you normally sit at a writing desk, try sitting at a kitchen or dining room table, or in a chair with a lap desk. And don't be afraid to pamper yourself. I've taken my lap desk and crawled into bed with a mug of coffee or tea. If you have a backyard, a patio, or a deck, getting outside can be a great mental refresher. Being creative with your writing space can also work miracles. Bring something new into your location, or arrange the furniture differently. Maybe you can take some couch or chair cushions and some pillows and build yourself a makeshift divan. Prop your device on a footstool or a cardboard box. At the end of the day, all you really need is a secluded corner and the means to make yourself cozy. I hope this video has given you some ideas for changing up your writing routine and making Camp Nano a personal success. That may mean something a little different to each of us, but I think if we enjoy ourselves and find ways to renew our creative spirits, that would be an amazing success for many of us. Until next time, stay well, be good to yourselves, and keep those keyboards clacking.